March 2nd, 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic in Morocco officially starts. During this hardship, us, Moroccans, we really needed the government that would actually stand by our side. Well, it sort of was the case, and we somehow managed to come off this crisis with even with extreme difficulties. Or at least that's what you and I thought. Because now looking back at it, we would not fail to realize that it had just done more harm than good. Morocco is now left with a significant increase of unemployment. Indeed, unemployment rates have now reached their highest since 2001. Furthermore, the Moroccan economy is now in a recession for the first time in 2 decades. People are now suffering, dying from hunger. Families are now jobless, homeless, hopeless. What's the solution, you might think? Well, there was no solution, not until October 7, 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, respected audience, honorable juries, dear opponents, yes? Dear opponents and ladies and gentlemen, respected audience, ladies and gentlemen, respected audience, honorable juries, dear opponents and classmates, greetings. Words cannot describe how thrilled I am to be standing here for the first time behind this podium in front of these amazing people debating such an interesting topic. Aziz Akhannouch's first 100 days, the work of the government has been positive so far. But most importantly, letting you people realize and discover the truth rather than believe in absolute absurdity. So during all this debate, ladies and gentlemen, we would not fail to, we would not escape the words government. So how about we take some few seconds and define it. So as easy as it is, a government is the system of a group of people governing a organized community. In our case today, a kingdom. This government aims to provide leadership, public services, and national security, and the list goes on and on. Now, going back to that October 7, 2021, since that day, the day when Aziz Akhannouch, a member of the RNI, was selected to be the new Morocco's prime minister, his government was keen not to waste no time and actually started on working on delivering major promises as soon as they were appointed. From healing our country from the damage of COVID to healing our country from the damage of COVID and less government's mistake to approaching new lifestyle and changing programs that would actually do nothing but make Morocco a better kingdom. His government also noted that they work far from noise and populism, not talking and selling fake illusions to Moroccans. So these rapid improvements and changes may be illustrated in many domains, but most importantly, the economy one. Because it is the #1 reason why Morocco is still facing, it is the #1 reason why Morocco is still facing and is still stuck with all these obstacles. Furthermore, we have, ladies and gentlemen, the huge importance given today to our healthcare system. Now, let's make it more concrete rather than just imagining and talking about it. For example, we have the new social security program or project that aims to enable 11 million people to benefit from health insurance and health coverage, and 30 million people in the long term. Akhannouch also noted that millions are allocated to people with special needs, also pledging to ensure the availability of vaccine and to all people while encouraging them to take the booster dose to achieve the global community.
BY?
Yes. No. If in only 100 days, ladies and gentlemen, this government was able to achieve what others could not do for years, then this is how we know Morocco is actually in the right path. Thank you.
Dear audience, members of the jury, government, welcome to today's coaching session. What is in today's schedule? Educating black sheeps in our society that actually think that Mr. Akhannouch's first 100 days were successful. You could tell by now that my position is very, very clear, even though it might be controversial to some, but it's the absolute truth, and no one can tell me anything otherwise. So let's start with what was promised in the pre-election. The 5 promises that are nowhere to be seen, such as creating 1 million job opportunities. I know it hasn't been so long since he was last appointed, but we need to at least see hope and improvement. Hope and improvement. I'm sorry. I thought he would be improving the employment rate, since it went from 40.2 to 39.7. But not only that, not only it stayed in the same spot, it went down from 39.8 to 39.7. It's not much, but you can definitely not call it positive work. It is honestly delusional to actually think that so much happened in those 100 days, when it has been just talks, plan after plan, with no project executed, nor proof of it possibly being true. You might be manipulated with words, but we will never believe it until we actually see it. We would be more than happy if you actually come up here and give us factual information about the good things that happened in those 100 days, because from what we see, there's nothing. Oh yeah, talk about not doing nothing, anything, nothing at all. Our beloved Mr. Akhannouch finally answered our long-awaited questions after the 100 days passed. And let me just say, it was the most manipulative and gaslighting interview I have ever seen. I'm sorry, but when he was asked in all sectors, tourism, health, education, and employment, all what was mentioned were future plans that have been somehow taken so long. It is absolutely illogical that out of all, program this, plan that, none, and I repeat, none, were even initiated in those 100 days. All what was served was him ghosting us on social media, which was supposed to be the easiest gate for us to know what was happening in the government and the plans that they're supposedly promising us. So, yeah. And since this was much discussed by many, Mr. Akhannouch finally had something to say about this. And I quote, "Whenever it is necessary to explain to the citizens the measures we will take." It is always necessary, but I digress. Hoping to see this in the future, as you all believe in the future. Actually, wait, let me talk about this. It's always we will, the X plan will, the Y program aims, come in soon. This is not a movie trailer. These are issues that are happening in our country, and all we are getting are just promises, fake promises, because we're not seeing them happening in real life and not coming to life, actually. How about we talk now instead of later, and you actually walk the walk instead of just talking? Anyways, I'll be ending my speech in hope to put an end to whatever opinion this is. Aziz Akhannouch's first 100 days. How about Aziz Akhannouch's first 100 days? The work of the government has been nothing so far. Thank you so much.
Well, to answer your question, you said that 100 days, Akhannouch. I get the point, right? So to be honest with you, I think 100 days is way too early to assess how our government is doing so far. I mean, we should not compare ourselves to the United States of America, who is used to these 100 days assessment, because it's a huge country with very powerful and dynamic economy. Politics. Our debate concerns the government, and executive power is exercised by the government. Now, let's simplify this enigma and make it understandable for everyone over here, because I'm pretty sure one of us, if not myself, whenever we hear the word politics, we instantly panic. So here's what I have to say. Maybe we do have price rises, but this is due to the international context, especially after the war in Ukraine. We must all know that Canada, who produces oil, is also dealing with price rise. Prices have reached $1.5. On the other hand, we, who don't have the natural resource.
I'm sorry, you said that 100 days is too early, but this is what is supposed to talk about. We are supposed to talk about the first 100 days.
I think, okay.
Oh, yeah, sure.
100 days. To talk about 5 years of mandate and shorten it in just 100 days, it's too early, I think. That's what I want to say. That's it? Okay. So here's what I have to say. Maybe we do have price rises, but this is due to the international context. Especially recently after the war in Ukraine, we must all know that Canada, who produces oil, is actually dealing with price rise. Prices have reached $1.5. On the other hand, we, who don't have natural resource, have reached $1.3. So I think we can clearly see the difference. Thus, the economy of all the countries will dramatically be affected. Without forgetting the fact that our government has helped so many young adults achieve their goals by providing 2 billion dirhams to 13 projects of great importance for the country. Also, our government had a rapid and effective response to Algeria's halt in the flow of gas from the Maghreb pipeline. The government has taken mature, effective, and efficient decisions without any damage or interruption to safeguard its own gas needs. Now, our opponents over here might say that a document also recorded the sudden and incomprehensible withdrawal of the draft criminal law from Parliament, as in the case of the Penal Code and another one concerning the customs agent. But they have been withdrawn for the purpose of doing more research and studies, since these laws were imposed by the previous government. Thanks to the withdrawal of the law, the new government can now avoid disorder and anarchy in the occupation of public spaces and uphold the law as it should. And those who say that this new government has a lack of communication, and I quote, "The weak government communication and the great confusion regarding providing data and explaining the measures," well, guess what? One more positive thing, this new government has established weekly press conferences which never existed before. Ever since Mustafa Baitas started as minister delegate to the head of the government in charge of relations with parliament and government spokesman, he has been comfortable dealing with the media. He is a man of compromise who knows how to manage balances with tact. He was able to forge good relations with everyone in the party and establish mutual respect with the media. Thank you.
A very good morning. I would like to wish to the honorable adjudicators and member of the government. We're having a very entertaining morning with what has been said from the other side of the house today. As everyone here knows, Mr. Aziz Akhannouch, one of the richest people in Morocco, has been nominated as the new prime minister after winning the elections. Well, people think that because of his wealth, he will change our country, but it's just a delusion on their part, because money won't solve our kingdom problems. Today, I get a chance to express myself as a Moroccan citizen and give my opinion regarding the first 100 days of Aziz Akhannouch. And I think that most of Moroccans share the same opinion as me, except you, dear opponent, which is the first 100 days of Mr. Akhannouch hasn't been positive. Very sad, right? After hearing all the promises he gave us. But in reality, nothing has changed. I strongly believe that a businessman isn't fit for this job, because a prime minister should have a strong political affiliation, and also because a businessman will always think of what will benefit him first, then the others. But even with all this, some of you might think that I'm wrong, or may say that 100 days is not a long period where we could see changes. But it is, ladies and gentlemen. 100 days is approximately 1/3 of the year. And in those 100 days, it allows us to judge his work and see whether he started on a positive way or not. But sadly, there hasn't been any change, and the promises haven't even been started yet. And Let's give an example. Given 1,000 dirham to all people aged above 60 years. Well, they're still waiting for it, as my grandfather. And they really have to get it, because without it, they can't really survive in this country. Yes?
I'm sorry, you said in the beginning that money won't solve the country's problem. And you're talking now about money. You said in the beginning that they need to invest, they need to create new job opportunities. That's basically
Yeah, but they think that because he has a lot of money, he will change our country. But he didn't do nothing until now. He gave us promises, but nothing has changed. Okay, let me continue. Well, you might say that it will take time, but he should start. He should start so we can see the changes. And also, people are suffering because of job opportunities here in our country. As my friend mentioned earlier, the employment rate is decreasing, and Mr. Aziz Akhannouch still hasn't found a solution for these problems, which lead people to no other option than protesting. And this is when conflict will start in our country. That is why, dear opponent, think carefully of what you're going to say, because you have been brainwashed, you and some other parties here in Morocco, saying that Mr. Aziz Akhannouch's first 100 days has been positive so far, because I think it's just a lie. Thank you.
Before we start, let's do some mathematics. 100 days equals 1/3 of a year, but it also equals 1/5 of 5 years. Dear audience, esteemed opponents, honorable members of the jury, what an honor it is for me to stand before you all to talk about our beloved country. However, before I dive into the topic, I would like to acknowledge how much easier it is to be negative and pessimistic nowadays. Criticizing things is for sure a lot more simple than finding solutions on alternatives. Raising questions is a lot less challenging than finding complex and difficult answers. So I guess in a certain way, I understand where our opponents are coming from. But don't you worry, my teammates and I are here to clarify your vision. After appointing the Moroccan ministers, Akhannouch announced his government's plans. The president pledged his commitment to social welfare, supporting the most vulnerable families and strengthening public health and education. With respect to the national economy, which has been hard hit by the pandemic, Akhannouch assured that he would stimulate it for the benefit of employment. And he did. For the moment, the Awrash program, which aims to create 250,000 jobs between 2020 and 2023,
POI?
has been approved. Yes?
Yeah, I know. And it's just one POI per speaker, right?
Mm-hmm.
One POI per speaker, I'm allowed to speak. So, you mentioned the program. I believe it's Awrash, right?
Yes.
That program was initiated like a while after 100 days. That does not count. If you actually did your research correctly, you would have found that it started in March 1st, the first 100 days, and in the first week of January. So that's absolutely irrelevant to the topic. So I don't see how that argument really works for your side.
Well, it works in a sense that like Akhannouch is actually making efforts like in general, so it still counts because it's still something that will help the Moroccan country in general. So as I was saying, the government was keen to not waste any of its time, and it started and has started its work as soon as appointed by the king, by His Majesty King Mohammed VI, by developing the government program and appropriation bill within 2 months. Just like Ines mentioned before, it is simply unreasonable to expect astonishing and sudden achievements in only 100 days, because these things simply take time to come along. Furthermore, when addressing the issue of water deficiency in our country, the new government underlined the existence of ongoing projects to meet Moroccans' needs in water. The National Program for Drinking Water Supply and Irrigation 2020-2027 has been working to offer many solutions, including the construction of dams, water desalination, and irrigation. Not to mention that 500 million Moroccan dirhams will be allocated to people with special needs. The government has pledged to ensure the availability of vaccines to all people while encouraging them to take booster dose to achieve global immunity. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, the government is making considerable efforts to improve all sectors in our country, while dealing with the numerous hardships left by the pandemic. Dear audience, I would like to invite you all to have a little faith and to believe in this new government. It's only been 100 days, and it is clearly making positive efforts to make us go forward, especially considering the current international and national circumstances. Thank you.
Greetings. First of all, I want to mention something my opponent said, talking about something that was after the 100 days, which is off topic, so we can't discuss it in this debate. Sorry. Last summer, Mr. Aziz Akhannouch became our prime minister. Sorry. Like every politician, he promised us very positive changes. After 100 days since his election, we noticed little to no change. His core political goal is to improve the economic state of our beloved country. But like my fellow comrades mentioned before me, the situation of our country getting worse than what was before. One of the main promises of Mr. Akhannouch's campaign is to create job opportunities. But unlike the beautiful words that come out of his mouth, the rate of employment actually decreased as soon as he was elected. This says a lot about his trustworthiness. One of his other promises is to increase the minimum wage of primary school teachers to 7,500 dirhams. Since his election, this topic was mentioned once in his speech on November 29th, promising that this project was not forgotten and that it will be in work in the next weeks to come. Since then, we never heard of this project again, never getting mentioned. In his words, I quote, "We will not be afraid to solve any problem, no matter its difficulty." But as proven many times by my teammates and I, Mr. Prime Minister is avoiding the real results of his actions and prefers to mention his imaginary country where his projects are doing great. We can take examples from other world leaders that the first 100 days tells everything about how well that person will do for the rest of his mandate. I'm sorry. Mr. Akhannouch started very badly. We know that the previous government did very badly as well, and we can clearly see its effects on our country. One of the problems that were created by the previous government was forcing teachers on contracts they didn't agree on. Yes?
You said that the government started very badly,
yes.
Mr. Akhannouch. So I said previously that we somehow solved so many problems and had a rapid reaction to so many, like for example, the oil.
Yes.
So it's not. I think.
But my sources said it didn't improve that much. I'm talking about other changes, in economics, in employment, in the field, the problem of teachers and stuff like that. Okay. I'm sorry. The previous government was forcing teachers on contracts they didn't agree on. They also separated their jobs from public employment. Employment and stopped the direct the direct employment of teachers after graduation, which increases the number of unemployed people with a diploma. He once again promised to solve this problem on November 29th, but nothing has been done so far. In some regions of this country, teachers are still protesting. We citizens of this country are getting played by this man who has one goal and one goal only, is to make his bank account bigger. As one of the richest and most successful businessmen in this country. Thank you.
So, dear member of the opposition, you said that the employment rate increased. It's because of COVID, not the government. It decreased. It's because of COVID, not the government. And from what I can see, our dear opponents didn't do enough researches, but I've done them, so hear me out. After carefully hearing our dear opponents, I realized that we are not in the right place to talk about today's topic. I mean, can you hear how good the quality of the mic is? How I'm dressed, how members of the opposition and government are dressed? How we can afford to pay to be in this school where we not only learn about academics, but also life, where we get great education. It totally makes sense that we can't feel and realize what's actually happening around us in our country because we're not exposed to it, which explains why our dear opponents think that the president hasn't done enough. But there is something that I am actually sure we all went through and we all were exposed to. COVID. Dear members of the opposition, I would very much like you to answer my question. How do you think the government is supposed to make new achievements when they haven't even solved the problems that our country has always been going through for the past years, especially with COVID? How can you solve a hard exercise when you still have problems in the lesson? My maths teacher once told me, yes?
I'm sorry, but I cannot go past all of the arguments that were mentioned by the Prime Minister and the member of the government about the country being full of there's poverty everywhere, but you're still supporting the decision of Mr. Aziz Akhannouch, like making the prices above average for people, for necessities in life.
This is an economical issue. Politics, it doesn't have anything to do with politics. It's because of COVID, the prices are rising in the whole world. Anyway, so, my maths teacher once told me that I always need to start with the easy, simple exercises, then move to the hard ones in order for me to improve. And that's what I did. I improved. And that's exactly what the government is trying to do. Mr. Akhannouch's government has been trying to clean up the best of the other ones, for the past 100 days. They have been saving people from COVID's misery, which you clearly aren't a victim of. Unlike millions of people who lost their jobs, millions of families who can't fulfill their needs, thousands of young graduates with great degrees who are unemployed. Who do you think is figuring this out? The government has been working on and already started to launch a project to create about 250,000 jobs opportunities. They have been encouraging youth and helping them with investing. They have updated their budget law on public investment from 180 billion dirhams to 240 billion dirhams. They're even looking for alternatives to prevent the waste of water because of agriculture. They have been working on education because obviously they won't go from 101 on the worldwide education worldwide education survey to first in 100 days. So please give me alternatives if you think this is not enough. Thank you.
First of all, I just wanted to say something. Dear opponent, you said that the government didn't came up with any problems and that it was COVID that did all of this. I think that it's the government that is supposed to solve any problems that were there before. It's the government that is supposed to solve the COVID problems. You're not supposed to do it. I don't know. The government's solution to a problem is usually as bad as the problem itself, said Mr. Milton Friedman. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my round. We all are somewhat active in social media, and we cannot turn a blind eye to the most recent hashtag that has been going, trending, and viral amongst Moroccan citizens. The rise of prices in our beloved country, specifically substantial increases in the price of fuel, cooking oil, vegetables, and other essential products. In order to successfully avoid a possible crisis, the population needs help, which means that Mr. Akhannouch should do something. And guess what Mr. Akhannouch is doing? You have 2 seconds to guess. Nothing. He's absolutely doing nothing about it. He has been acting as if nothing was currently happening in this country. Do you guys sincerely think that a billionaire, a person ranking 3rd in the top 10 richest people in Morocco, would care about the price of tomatoes? The irony is immaculate. So don't bother standing here to tell me that the rise of prices is an important economical step, because it is not. It is putting Morocco's food security at risk. Do you know what that means? It means breaking the most important pillar of the state. So if you guys wake up in the morning and take your breakfast with your favorite cornflakes, it doesn't mean that that it goes the same way with the rest of the population. Things are different. On the other hand, you would say that the government launched many projects to raise the Human Development Index. I can't believe how naive and artless you guys are. Plenty of governments told us they were running projects all around Morocco. But those projects either finished by failing or, most importantly, vanished. And I can prove myself. When the elections were there and people were voting, the Minister of Health recorded a video where she talked about a project that her ministry was working on, and it was the project Ri'aya. And that was supposed to be launched by October. And its purpose was a full health coverage insurance. Well, in other words, when you go to a public hospital, you get your appointment on the same day and you pay nothing for it. My question is, where is it? Why don't we talk about it anymore? Looking forward to seeing you avoid answering this. Adolphe Brassard once said, the government. Yeah?
Why are you talking about health and the medical field where it's totally unrelated to politics, because they can't have control in health?
Sorry, because the word government doesn't only include politics. It includes many, many domains. And health is one of the most important domains, is one of the most important things that should be in a country, just to be a country, just to be that word. I don't think that you should talk twice. I was saying before I was rudely interrupted that Adolphe Brassard once said, the government, it promises without promising and retracts its lies to pretend to say the truth. Up to this point of time, we all can see that the government's work hasn't been really, really positive so far. Thank you for listening.
We start with
By
the
order.
Prime Minister.
It was such a huge honor to hear all what my dear opponents had to say, but I'm sorry to break it out to you guys, but it is so clear that you guys did not really get the idea of the topic, because if so, you wouldn't be talking about projects that take years and years to be achieved and expecting them to be achieved by now. Also, my dear opponent was talking about the prices increasing, and I would just like to make one thing clear, that this is a global crisis and it is not concerning only our country, and the government is indeed making huge efforts to confront this. And the long story short, ladies and gentlemen, our country is for sure knowing a huge improvement and development with Aziz Akhannouch's new government, and no one could ever deny this fact, and no one could ever say the opposite. Thank you.
Hello again. I'm sorry, but that was a very disappointing argument that you just gave. I really cannot process how you differentiate health and economic from politics when the government is here supposed to care about their own citizens and give back, like take care of their own citizens in all ways. And you mentioned something about someone here mentioned about something about being pessimistic or negative. We're not being negative or pessimistic. We're being realistic. We're being logical. We're giving you what we're seeing. Because I'm so tired of hearing, the government has been improving so many things. Give them to me. You're literally just giving us promises and plans that we're not seeing, nor like talked about in the government. And about COVID is the main reason of job employment. That would be my time. Thank you.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, and I will repeat myself, 100 days is too early. To really assess our new government, we think, my teammates and I, that it's opportune to delay these assessments at least 1 year after the beginning of the mandate. As Mao Zedong once said, politics is war without bloodshed, while war is politics with bloodshed. Some people will never be happy. No matter what you say, what you do, they will always complain, judge, and drag everyone in their circle. And believe me, it's easy to criticize, though it's hard to provide appropriate solutions. That's why we should be thankful for what we have and the environment we live in, which we should stay optimistic and united as one. Thank you.
I would like to say, as I mentioned earlier, that 100 days is not a short period. It's far enough to start, to make a move, to take an action so that people have hope that there might be some changes here in our country. But saying that it will take 5 years, we're not sure about it. We're not sure that there will be a change, that they will improve our country or do some good changes for it, because giving them too much time will because given too much time also make the people in the country more furious, and they will start conflict. They will start protesting because of all the problems that are arising here in our country, even if it's international, but we are also here suffering, and people can't just accept it anymore. And thank you.
To answer the member of the opposition, just because old governments did bad doesn't mean that this new government will necessarily be bad as well. That's just jumping into conclusions way too fast and being way too negative. Also, I clearly see that our opponents have a big problem with the fact that Mr. Akhannouch is rich. Yes, he is a billionaire, but we're here talking about the government as a whole. We're not talking about one person. He represents the Moroccans. Just because he's rich, that's not even our topic. Anyway, the opponents are clearly being very negative and trying to drag us down with their pessimistic way of thinking, and that's fine. But I'm just telling you that our team is using logical arguments and talking to the reason in each and every one of you. So choose carefully which side you would like to be on. Thank you.
First of all, I want to repeat my statement. Right here, we can see the subject right here. We are talking about the first 100 days. So, like my opponents always talk about 100 days is a little is a short time. No. But like we are talking about the 100 days. We don't care about like what will happen in the future. Thank you. And I want to mention also that my opponents are clearly defending every bad action of the Prime Minister with COVID. So we should just stop the elections and stick with the previous government and blame everything on COVID. Like why we doing the elections? And how do we explain the decrease of employment by 0.1% just after his election? That's a drastic decrease if you never studied math. The number of unemployment was stable before his election, and it was drastically decreased. Do you research and stop being biased on a topic that clearly has one answer? Thank you.
After all what we said, you still have the nerve to say that the government hasn't done anything. So, in conclusion, Morocco has had many presidents, many governments, but it's the first time that we get to experience a real leftist one. We might have had some that pretended to be leftists, but always kept their conservative ideologies. To sum up, the government's work during their first 100 days, their first 3 months out of 5 years, has been nothing but promising. They addressed issues that other governments have never solved during years. And I refuse. I refuse to be as pessimistic and as negative as our dear opponents. We're talking politics, not fantasies, so I don't expect them to launch a rocket in 100 days when Moroccans are still living in misery. Thank you.
Dear government, you mentioned pessimism, and my friend said that there is no pessimism. We are just being realistic. We are just telling what is happening here, and you come here again and you mention pessimism again. I don't know what's happening, but whatever. I don't know what the word work says for you, but for us it says improvements. So it says good things showing up. So if prices rising up and the promises going thin up in the air means good work for you, then you have a problem. Try to heal that. And always remember and keep in mind that with supporting that, it would let families with nothing to eat, it would increase the poverty in our beloved country. Thank you.